Welcome back to the Unbearables podcast. I'm Brandon Ruiz, and I'm here with
Jack Howard.
And today we're going to be talking about NFL draft prospects, specifically QBs, and we're going to talk about Trey Lance, Mac Jones, and who was the other one? My bad. Kyle Trask. We're also going to talk about the Bulls and the Pelicans, their game, and we're going to talk about the Suns and the Lakers.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, we said we're going to talk about Trey Lance first, and I want Jack to get to Trey Lance first. So what do you think, Jack?
So over the course of my time scouting Trey Lance, my opinion on him moved quite a bit. At first, I thought he was hot garbage, but the more I watched, the more I fell in love with him, really. And
That's
this, I don't think you're gonna like this take based on what we talked about last week. But for some time, I considered ranking Trey Lance above Zach Wilson.
wow.
I ended up deciding against it because I think Zach Wilson is a safer pick, but the upside with Trey Lance, man, I think he has all the physical tools. If he can be coached right, I think he has it all to succeed in the NFL.
Okay. So I do think that Trey Lance has a very strong arm. I just think sometimes he overthrows people like by far. Like it's absurd sometimes. I will say that that can be coached, but I just get a little nervous about that because sometimes when people overthrow people all the time, that's not something that can get fixed. I understand what you're saying though. With he's athletic, he can run, and he does have the strong arm, so there is potential there. But I also think if you like a quarterback like that, then why not get Justin Fields instead? Just because I feel like Justin Fields is a little bit more accurate and faster than Trey Lance. I could be wrong. Maybe he isn't faster, but it just looked like he was more elusive to me. And he was a little bit quicker, but at the end of the day, maybe it's close. But to me, it just looked like Justin Fields and Trey Lance kind of play a similar style, and I think I would prefer Justin Fields, but obviously Trey Lance would be easier to get if that was like between players like that, I guess.
I think you're exactly right. I think they play a similar game, and Justin Fields is the more developed quarterback at this point. I think Trey Lance is the more sort of naturally gifted athlete. But the big thing with Trey Lance is he's such a raw prospect because he only has 16 games on tape, right? He really burst onto the scene in 2019 at North Dakota State, the school that gave us Carson Wentz. And so I think the justification for liking Trey Lance so much is the same justification as what the Bears had for trading up to pick Mitchell Trubisky. It was the super raw pick. He only had a few games on tape, and he had all the physical tools. And front offices love that. They love a guy that they can mold, that they can take advantage of the tools, and they can really get him to meet his potential. And for some of the other guys, I think the narrative is that their potential is almost reached, whereas with Trey Lance, it's not. And front offices just love that. So I think he's going to go quite high. And I think that, you know how we always talk about QBs need to sit, but unfortunately that just doesn't happen in today's NFL.
Yes.
Trey
Sadly.
Lance absolutely has to sit. I know we said that about like the past quarterbacks, but they're just not going to sit. Trey Lance absolutely has to.
But that's why he has to be. But he's not going to sit if he's a first round pick, most likely, right?
I think he can.
Maybe, but I mean, I think anyone that drafts Trey Lance has to know that he is not ready. You could just look at him and just know he's not ready. I mean, going back to some of his games, I would say from 2019, though, these are the things that kind of concern me, though, with Trey Lance. This is all I want to say, is that there were some games where he passed the ball only 9 times. There was one game he did that, one game 11, one game 14, one game 15. In the 9-time game, he completed 7 passes, and in the 14-time game, he completed 7, 15-time 11, and 11 time completion. No, pass game is 10. So my thing is like, okay, so he had a pretty decent completion percentage overall, right? But when you only pass a few passes, it kind of leads me to thinking that your coach doesn't trust you, your offensive coordinator doesn't trust you passing the ball. And that concerns me because at the college level, people are so open. And if your coach doesn't trust you to pass the ball, then how accurate are you? You know what I mean?
I think that's one interpretation of how that can look, because he also in 2019 ran for 1,100 yards, running 10 times a game, and what I saw on the tape was he's a read option quarterback, just like Justin Fields, just like Deshaun Watson, kind of like Jalen Hurts too, but he leans more towards running, and I feel like his run number will come way down in the NFL because the reason he ran so much is he was just such a better athlete than everybody on the field. He was taller, he was bigger, he was stronger, faster than everyone except the linemen, basically.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, the competition level obviously was lower that he was playing against,
Right.
too, which does suck for
Because he was
prospecting.
Yeah, North Dakota State is FCS, right?
I think so. Yes, they are. So my thing is this, right? Too. It's funny you said that read option thing because I did say, I said he's a play action quarterback. Which basically just means that he passes to wide open people. And like, because people say I'm a play action quarterback, and that just basically means like, oh, so you need someone to be wide open for you to hit them. I just don't know, you know what I mean? Because then okay, play action, like if that means that hopefully the defense bites, so someone will be wide open, you know. And that's what I thought I saw for the most part. I could be being really hard on him, but I also think you're right. He is super underdeveloped, and it does suck that we couldn't see more of him because who knows, you know, how much he's grown, you know, like in terms of in 2020, but we really couldn't see that much. So, because you got to I think about that too, because you look at some of the other quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence looks completely different than the first year he was playing in college. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
That is definitely something that you have to consider. It's just hard when you can't actually see it, though.
It is, yeah.
But I mean, I could see where you're coming from, but I just think that there are some better options. But I don't know if the Bears, if in terms of where they're drafting, because I always think about it because I'm a Bears fan, from the Bears' perspective, and they're a team that needs a quarterback, so it kind of does make sense. He would be one of the options that would be available. I think the only options that would be available by the time the Bears would be able to pick a quarterback would probably be Trey Lance, Kyle Trask, Mac Jones, maybe Justin Fields, and that's a maybe.
I'm going to say there is a 0% chance that Justin Fields gets out of the top 6.
Yeah, it's a maybe, you know, for me. But I don't think. I mean, it's just in terms of if they devalue him, because I have seen him drop a lot on people's like their draft boards and everything, like top quarterbacks and everything.
Yeah, me too.
I've seen him listed
I'm not a fan of that. I still think Justin Fields is the number 2 quarterback in this class.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's either 2 or 3. I just don't know. I think it's safer to say Justin Fields is number 2, just because he did play against, I guess, better competition. It does suck that actually really matters, you know, because it's not really the quarterback's fault in some senses.
I think it matters, but not as much as people act like it does, because when I'm looking at quarterbacks and I'm trying to decide which ones I want, I'm not necessarily looking at their numbers. What we're looking for is traits that translate from the college game to the professional game, because it is a different game moving from college to the NFL. So even if a quarterback doesn't have the best numbers, if they have coachable traits, I think that's a plus. And that's why I'm so on Trey Lance right here, is because what traits do you want in a quarterback? You want, in today's NFL, you want mobility, you want accuracy, obviously, and he might not have that, but I think a lot of his accuracy problems come from footwork, because sometimes his footwork is
Yes.
literally just non-existent. Like, he will straight up square up to the line of scrimmage, and it baffles my mind. But NFL coaches are really good at eliminating footwork problems, and I think that boosts a lot of his accuracy.
That probably would. You're right. I did notice that his footwork was pretty bad in a lot of situations. It was
Yeah.
very rare where he actually set his feet really well when he threw the ball. But it makes sense for people like him because he has such a strong arm that you feel like you don't need to set your feet, right? But setting your feet would help generally. There are some people that don't have to. That's true, right? Patrick Mahomes doesn't have to set his feet. But he's kind of like an anomaly,
But he
when you look
can
at certain
too, yeah.
people. Yeah, well, he can too, for sure. But when you look at people like that, like those people, they don't have to set their feet. But also to say that you're as good as those people, might be kind of difficult. You know what I mean? I
Right,
don't know.
yeah.
Not everyone can play like that. So some people can, some people can't. I would venture to say Trey Lance is not one of those people.
I really think he could be. Like, so it's a risky pick to love Trey Lance as much as I do, because out of these top 6 quarterbacks we're discussing, the 3 last week, the 3 today, he very clearly has the highest bust potential, because he's
Yeah.
so raw, and sometimes they just turn out like Mitchell Trubisky and they never reach their potential. Like,
Honestly, I don't know if I would say that, to be honest. I just wanted to sorry to cut you off right there. But honestly, I don't see anything special about Mac Jones. So I feel like personally, I mean, we talked about it a little off screen. I'm sorry to bring up Mac Jones now, but basically all of his passes are screen passes, and it looks like his receivers are always wide open. Like Alabama just schemed an amazing scheme for him, so he doesn't have to worry about that type of stuff. But I didn't see anything where I thought, this guy is great. This guy is really good. It seemed like a guy who's just a guy, like a backup. When you look at Trey Lance, I could see what you're saying, where maybe he gets molded and he could become a starter. When I look at Mac Jones, I think backup. So I feel like, yes, you're right. He could flop, but out of the 3 today, I mean, I would pick Trey Lance above Mac Jones.
in a vacuum, I want Trey Lance more too. But do you think Mac Jones has a higher chance of busting than Trey Lance?
Well, for me, that's the hard part because I would say this. I would say that it's hard for me to say that Mac Jones would be a bust for me because in my eyes, he's already a backup.
So let's at the moment Mac Jones is projected to be a mid to late first round pick, worst case scenario early second round pick. With that in mind, do you think he turns into a bust if he has sort of a career backup level career? Like, would you consider that career bust worthy? Because I would.
Yes. Okay. So I will say yes because hype-wise, like if you're talking about what the media will be like, yes, that would be a bust, right? But in my head, no. But how they would treat it, they would treat him like he is a bust. 100%. You're right with that. That's a good analysis of it. But I just feel like, in my eyes, Mac Jones isn't what everyone else thinks he is. What the college football broadcasters made him out to be. They would talk about his numbers all the time, right? And they would talk about the one pass he makes that was actually forward. And they'd make such a big deal out of it, but they don't talk about how he got all of his yards off of screens from his wide receivers. You know what I mean? So I don't get it. He was throwing screens every single play where it was a passing play for him. And what are you supposed to gauge out of that? How are you supposed to determine if he's actually good or not?
Right.
Or the team around him is just awesome.
That team was awesome. And that's the big knock on him, is because he had so much talent around him. So you're right. It's hard to judge. And I think when all these college broadcasters, they point to his numbers, it can be a little misleading because, like I said before, it's when you're scouting, it's not about numbers, it's about traits. And I think Mac Jones and Trey Lance are pretty much polar opposites in terms of traits. And so the reason why I like Trey Lance so much is the traits that he has that I think translate well to the NFL: mobility, arm strength, and I think he's a very smart quarterback. I saw this report that Trey Lance did his own film study. Like each day of the week, he had a different aspect of the upcoming defense that he was going to focus on. Like Monday, he would focus on their third down defense, Tuesday, red zone defense, and then he would present it to the team. I think that level of intelligence really bodes well for Trey Lance. And in terms of traits that Mac Jones has that translate, I think his best trait is that he's intelligent, just like Trey Lance. I think he's probably the best quarterback in this class at reading the secondary in real time. But he's missing those other traits. He's lacking mobility, he's lacking athleticism, and he's lacking arm strength.
He also has happy feet.
He does, yeah. So like,
I
it's
have
weird.
noticed that, because that's why I can't say how I actually feel about him, because I feel like there are so many people, though. This is what I really do feel. There are so many quarterbacks in this draft class that were if they were in Mac Jones' shoes, would have done so well or better. It's just he literally was throwing it out to the flat so many times. Trey Lance could do that. Kyle Trask can do that. All of them could do that. And here's the thing: is like I watched a decent amount of his games, and I didn't really see him throw down the middle very often. I do look into that, because to me, if you never throw down the middle, I think that you lack the confidence that you can make the pass down the middle, because there's so many more defenders down the middle, right?
And that is where a lot of like high level NFL throws happen too.
Yes, right? And that's why Tom Brady's so good. That's why Drew Brees is so good. Those people, they were great, is because they can make those passes and they get like 5 yards, 8 yards, 7 yards, 10 yards, like so fast, you know what I mean? But out of all the quarterbacks that I've seen, I've watched, the only ones that have done that really consistently are, in terms of this draft class, are Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, and Kyle Trask. All the other guys don't do it. And that concerns me, because that is a really big thing NFL quarterbacks have to do. That's a big reason why I think, too, Mitchell Trubisky struggles so much, because, unless they just don't let him do it, but he really never throws it down the middle. And it's just, you have to do that, because in the NFL, if you only throw to the sidelines, that's going to get exposed. Their defenses are way too good to just let you do that.
Yeah, I think you're right. So in terms of your assessment of Mac Jones and his career outlook, for me, I think that like career backup is not necessarily giving him enough credit. Like, I'm still not super high on him. I initially didn't really want to like him because I think the archetype of quarterback that Mac Jones is dying in the NFL and is going to go away sometime in the next decade. Because he's not a mobile quarterback, and I think at some point, like, mobility is going to be a requirement, at least to some minimum level. But in terms of his,
hard.
It is. And in terms of his career outlook, what I would consider a success for Mac Jones, like let's say he's there at number 20 and the Bears pick him at number 20. I would be okay with that. I would not be thrilled with that, but I would be okay with it, because I think that Mac Jones is the kind of quarterback that can lead a team that's already built, which is exactly what the Bears are. I don't think he can carry a team to a Super Bowl like a fully developed Trey Lance could, or any of the other 3 quarterbacks we've already talked about. I think those 4 could lead a franchise that's not necessarily great to a Super Bowl, and I don't think Mac Jones can do that. And it's not just because that's what he had at Alabama, because that's the exact situation he was in. Is just in terms of traits, the only one he really has is the ability to read defense in real time, and that's a very valuable trait, but it's not enough. Like, you still need to be you need to have arm strength, you need to be able to move, which he just doesn't do. He can move in the pocket a little bit, but he's not a threat to run.
Yeah, he's definitely not a threat to run. And one thing I think about too is, you brought up the arm strength, and he does have a weak arm. It is what it is. And those things concern me a lot. Essentially, having a weak arm, there are some people that can get away with it, and that's true. I think Trevor Lawrence is a person that might be able to get away with not having a super strong arm because he is smart, I think because he can read defenses, I think there's a chance that he can get away with that, right? But Mac Jones, it's hard for me to determine what he can do. And it's not necessarily his fault, because one thing I will say is that if those screen passes work all the time and those like short passes work all the time, then why wouldn't you do them? It's not his fault that the offense was so successful, because at the end of the day, if you know a defense can't stop something, why stop going to it until they show you that they can? You know?
Yeah, you're right. Like when I was looking at the Mac Jones film, I was also looking at Devontae Smith film and Jalen Waddle film. Like the weapons he had were just great, and I feel like he had a lot of throws to the third option, which was that short route, the flat route, the wheeler route, just the general check down. So while I do think it's a strength that he is able to recognize when he needs to go to the third option, he did, I feel, over-rely on the weapons to bail him out of mediocre ball placement throws.
It's so funny that you say that. I feel like a lot of times we have similar like thoughts on a lot of these things, because I did think similarly with that, because I thought, okay, now is he checking down because he doesn't see anything, or is he checking down because he know it's gonna work?
Right.
And so, he has a safety net, and it's really holding him back as a quarterback. That's something I was concerned about, because, it's really easy to check down all the time when you're going to get at least like 8 yards. But so why wouldn't you check down all the time? Just look, oh, that guy's not open. Okay, check down. Like one guy's not open. Is that really him like actually seeing things in real time, or is that him just knowing that he has that thing there to protect him? Because in the NFL, that is not going to be there. The only offense where people are wide open all the time, like how they are in college, is, and it's not necessarily true, it's not obviously as close, but is the Kansas City Chiefs offense. They're the only ones that have people wide open very frequently. It's crazy to me, but it's definitely like that. You watch their games, I literally find myself always asking, how are these people so wide open all the time? All the time I ask myself that question. But that's it. No one else. So that concerns me, essentially. That is something that I am concerned. But even with that being said, Patrick Mahomes could never can never have an offense like that where he could just keep on checking it down over and over again.
Yeah, I agree. Like because Mac Jones doesn't have the physical traits that Mahomes has, so he has to rely on his mechanics. He has good footwork, he has a good spiral, but the offenses that he's going to be in are going to be built completely different than the Zach Wilson offenses, the Justin Fields offenses.
Yes, because personally, like I already told you, but I really do think Kyle Trask could surprise people. I like that he is actually very open to passing it down the middle, and he did it pretty, I feel like, pretty successfully. His last game was pretty bad. But outside of that, he played really, really well. And I don't know. I think it's kind of weird where he seems like he was actually running an NFL styled offense, in my opinion, and not a lot of the players we look at were. And so that is also something that I'm kind of fond of, because I think to myself, okay, so he's showing you to some extent that he can run an offense how it would be run in the next level, and I really liked that. I felt like he had a strong arm. He could move a little bit. I will say I am concerned how much he fumbles, because he fumbles a lot when he gets hit. That's definitely an issue. But hopefully that could be fixed. But I don't know if that's something that can be fixed, to be completely honest with you. But in terms of how he passes the ball, I'm all in on that.
Well, I told you before we started recording that this was going to be a spicy episode. And I said that because I heard your opinion on Kyle Trask. And my opinion on Kyle Trask is not favorable. I do not think he's going to have much pro success. And I'll tell you why. Because if Mac Jones is an archetype of quarterback that's going away in the NFL, a non-mobile quarterback with a weak arm, or a mediocre arm, I think Kyle Trask is Mac Jones, but worse. I think they share similar traits in which they're strong and similar traits in which they're weak. There are things to like with Kyle Trask. He's got great size. He's 6'4" and 240 pounds. That is a big deal. I think, like Mac Jones, he has a decent ability to buy time in the pocket. That's important. You want to see a guy be able to step up and not crack under pressure. One thing he has over Mac Jones is touch. He has great touch on his pass, high level accuracy. But I think where it goes wrong for Kyle Trask is I disagree that he has a strong arm. I think his arm is actually pretty weak. It could be a footwork thing like it is with Trey Lance because Kyle Trask's footwork is incredibly bad. I think that affects his arm strength because I saw a lot of floated passes, little velocity. And even though they were accurate passes, he's a very accurate quarterback. I don't think that floaty passes can get by in the NFL, regardless of whether or not he can get it into a tight window.
See, I see what you're saying on that. My thing is this: the floaty passes, I guess. The reason why I liked them with Kyle Trask, in general, I don't, or I like them that much. But what I did like with Kyle Trask is that there's a problem when you throw a pass that kind of floats, right? And then the receiver has to stop. But when he was throwing those passes, it hit him in stride. And so that's where I kind of felt like, okay, well, I do think he has a strong arm, though, I will say. But that's where I kind of thought, so he has a lot of control on this ball, apparently. Because if you could hit him in stride, then that's all that matters. With a lot of the other quarterbacks, they'd never really hit receivers in stride. Even Mac Jones, like, he was never really hitting his receivers in stride. Like, they would stop, and because they're supreme athletes, they would be able to make the catch over them. And I always thought to myself, well, you're not hitting them in stride. In the NFL, the safety would have been there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The safety would have picked that off.
Mac Jones does have a bit of an underthrowing issue. And I think you're right. I think Kyle Trask has that over him. He anticipates routes very well.
That's the main reason, I'm going to be honest, that's the main reason I feel like why I like him. Is more of I think hitting receivers in stride is one of the most important things in the NFL level. Because in college, you get away with not having to hit them in stride because people are open so much. And so in the NFL level, you have to be able to hit them in stride. And that's why I actually think that Kyle Trask could be very good. I will say that the footwork stuff I think is a big deal because that's why I think he actually would need time, is because I think he is not sound. He's not sound yet in terms of the mechanics of the game, of playing the position, because he does need to work on that. But I do think the accuracy is really good because that's one of the most important things you need in a quarterback. And I do think he's a little bit more mobile than you think because, I don't know, when I watched him when he played Alabama, he had some pretty decent runs where he kind of ran over people too. So I was like, I do think he is a mobile quarterback in general. But, I mean, obviously maybe he didn't display that in every game. But what I will say is that I really think that the accuracy is really nice. And I understand because I know you're really big on the super mobile quarterbacks right now.
I am.
But my thing is that, I mean, when you look at Josh Allen, you look at Patrick Mahomes, and Deshaun Watson is mobile. What I will say, though, is that he doesn't actually run that much. Those are, in my opinion, Russell Wilson, some of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. But I think, for the most part, they have the ability there to get out. But at the rate they do it, I would say it makes it seem like they could do without it, almost. I think it does help that they have it because then if there's a play that's dead and all the receivers are down the field, then they can, get some yards, which they do frequently. But I feel like they're still like the best quarterbacks in the league are still more stationary than anything else.
I gotta say, I think I'm going with a hard disagree on the last couple minutes there. I think that in the NFL, all you need in terms of mobility is Deshaun Watson level, and actually no, that's probably too high of a bar. Like Aaron Rodgers level. I think all you need is the credibility to run if the play breaks down, and I
Yes.
don't think Kyle Trask has that. I have his stats up right now, and last year at Florida in 2020, he had 64 rush attempts for 50 total yards. So that sounds like a lot of quarterback sneaks. And I did see a decent amount of those on the tape I watched. And I did not see what could be called a mobile quarterback. I saw a late stage Big Ben type who bumbles around and
It's
falls
funny.
forward. I think that he has less mobility than Mac Jones, even though he ran more than Mac Jones. And a lot of Florida fans, from what I could tell, hated when they called like a Trask quarterback sneak just because he looked so unathletic doing it. And that lack of athleticism and general lack of mobility is a big trait that is just really important to me in a quarterback. So while he does have a great mind, he makes high level throws. He reads defenses at an okay level, and he anticipates receivers. Those are all very good traits that translate to the NFL level. But how often have unathletic, like statue quarterbacks with mediocre to weak arms succeeded in the NFL lately? You know?
See, I see what you're saying, but I really don't think he has a weak arm. That's my main thing. Is I really feel like his arm isn't weak. I feel like his arm could be accurate enough to be able to make up for how he plays. You know, like for I guess the speed aspect, I guess. But I just feel like you're right. There were a lot of quarterback sneaks, I will say, because even in the Alabama game, there was a ton of quarterback sneaks, and some were effective and some weren't, which I kind of didn't like. Because I always thought, too, why are you even doing this? Because he did seem like he was prone to fumbling. So why wouldn't you just use your running back? I don't get it, but college is a weird game. So it's definitely not like how they would play in the NFL, I feel like. But I don't know. I see what you're saying in terms of the mobile quarterback, but I just don't. When I watch Deshaun Watson play, because I actually did watch a lot of Texans games this season, I just felt like he never really ran that much. At least maybe in the games I watched, but he made all the big plays were made with his arm, you know? And he has the ability to run. He is a very fast quarterback. That's true. But I wouldn't, if you talk to Deshaun Watson, I don't think he would tell you that he's a running quarterback.
I'm not saying that every quarterback needs to be Lamar Jackson. I feel like I'm overstating my love for mobility because I just genuinely do love Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray. But like I said, Aaron Rodgers level, like you wouldn't really call him a running quarterback, would you?
So, no. But I will say is that Aaron Rodgers was a lot more mobile when he was in his like
He
late
was.
20s, you
Yeah.
know. So, I mean, now the thing is with Aaron Rodgers, I feel like because he had the ability to run, people still respect his ability to run, you know?
Right. And I don't think Kyle Trask has that. I don't think he would be respected as a credible threat to get any running yardage at
Yeah,
all.
and I agree with that aspect. I just feel like I feel like there still is a place for being able to pass the ball really well in the NFL.
There is, yeah.
So I definitely see what you're saying because obviously if Kyle Trask could run better in terms of because my thing is I think he could make some runs. Like if he's out in the open, I think he actually could run and get something like something that's open in front of him. But I don't think he would be the type of guy to just be running around. I think he'd be looking more for to throw a pass. But that's also generally why I think he would need to sit for a season because I think that he needs to learn how to set himself up better in the pocket and set himself up better to actually be in a position to do those things in case a play breaks down. That's where I think is a lot of the problems lie with Kyle Trask is that I feel like he is good at making the pass, but he's not always good at being in the right position at all times.
I agree 100% with you on that. I have a note, like I have one line that I wanted to get to on my notes, and you just hit it on the head. What I saw with a lot of his good passes, because he does have a lot of good passes, but I felt like he had a lot of time to let plays develop. Like I felt like his offensive line was really good.
It was
And
good.
Like,
Yeah, it was.
like that's not a knock on him. Like I'm not going to say like Kyle Trask was bad because his offensive line was good. But what I did see was he needed a lot of time, almost every play, to let the routes fully develop. And he could anticipate those routes once they were almost done. But I feel like he's not going to have nearly as much time to let plays develop in the NFL as he did at Florida. So he won't necessarily be able to make those anticipations because the routes might, like the play might already be broken by the time he wants to throw, you know?
Yeah.
He had a lot of time.
And you might be right in that assessment, I will say, because that's one of the biggest I mean, that assessment right there is what separates college and NFL quarterbacks.
Right, like the ability to improvise, because he did so much, like get the snap, now stand there for 3 seconds and just wait for the play to develop, and not a lot of improvisation on top of that.
Yeah, and I definitely, what I was going to say is basically it's the difference between the college and NFL quarterbacks where that is the problem, because that's something I do think would be a problem with Trey Lance as well, because I just think when you look at Trey Lance, it looks like I know for a fact Trey Lance only looked at one receiver every single play. You know?
Oh, I don't know about that.
I know it's not technically true. Obviously, I'm over exaggerating, but when I watched him play, the only time he looked at a different receiver in terms of in the pocket is if he rolled out. You know what I mean? And so it's a fact of, okay, now he had to roll out because the pocket was collapsing, which is good that he could do.
Yeah.
Which honestly, like, that's not a knock on him, but it does kind of concern me where it seems like, okay, I am looking at another receiver when it's panic mode, not when I'm,
But you could also view that as he has the ability to improvise, which is a good trait.
Yes, and I mean, obviously, not all of it is panic mode, but it's just because I think when I view it that way a little bit is when, those plays I'm talking about where he would roll out and then he would kind of just throw the ball as quick as possible, and it was, you know what I'm talking about, like it was just right away, and he wouldn't set his
really,
feet.
really deep
Yes.
balls too.
And that's where I'm thinking, What were you doing? You know what I mean? Like, what? Why did you do that? And you overthrew him, and thinking you had so much time, but I think you were a little nervous because you don't really know where the defensive linemen are when you do that stuff. Some people have really good feels for that, like Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady. Tom Brady isn't the best at rolling out. However, when he does have a good feel for how much time he has left, and I think that is a general problem with Trey Lance a little bit. Is where
I would
he
agree.
Doesn't have the feel for the defensive line yet. However, maybe you could get that, or maybe that's an innate thing. I don't know.
I think Trey Lance has very good instincts and feel as a runner, but not so much as a passer.
Yes, and I do think what you're saying, there is a potential because he has the mechanics there. Like in terms of he has the power, he has the throwing power, he has the speed, and the rolling out ability I think is good. I just don't like what he does sometimes after he rolls out.
Yeah, like in the NFL, you want to see a quarterback be able to extend plays, but I think you would prefer them to be able to extend plays in the pocket.
Yes.
Which Kyle Trask does do. That's one of his big strengths, is subtle movements in the pocket that bode well for him as a passer. I do think Kyle Trask will have a moderately successful career, kind of like Mac Jones.
If we could combine them.
Right.
If we could.
I think both of those guys, I'm higher on Mac Jones, but I think both of them have the ability to be on winning teams, not necessarily carry them, but sort of a Kirk Cousins type.
I could see, that's funny. I could see that. Kirk Cousins is I could see Kirk Cousins being a lot like that's actually a good comp, I think, to be honest, for both of those guys, because
not just in terms of like physical ability, but career arc, I think.
Yeah, because I mean, okay, so with Kirk Cousins, he sometimes has really good games, and sometimes he doesn't. But to be a really good Kirk Cousins quarterback, you have to be really, really accurate all the time.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Like how often does Kirk Cousins make you say wow? Right?
yes, right.
Not very often.
Well, which way actually?
In a good way.
Good way. I took it in a bad way. I thought, oh, all the time. Like, all the time.
But in a good way, I'd think Kirk Cousins doesn't make you say wow very often. Mac Jones, Kyle Trask, they don't make you say wow very often. I think Trey Lance makes you say wow a lot because he does some crazy things.
He does do some crazy things with his feet. I will say that one thing it does get though. One thing I will say too is that yes, he is a very good runner, but Justin Fields and Trey Lance, I think about it because they are really good runners, but I just don't think they're as fast as an NFL like run first quarterback needs to be, you know, because Lamar Jackson is basically as fast as a wide receiver. You know, it's that's what makes it different. That's what makes it difficult is that once he gets going, he's so elusive and he's so fast that you can't really touch him. And once he gets past a certain line of defense, you can't catch him. That's what I think makes Lamar Jackson so explosive, so dangerous. And I don't think that they're as fast as him.
Yeah, but there's no way that Trey Lance matches his 1,100 running yards. There's no way.
Yeah. Thought you meant because didn't Trey Lance run 1,100 in college? I was like, wait.
Yeah, what? Yeah. I mean, like you won't do that
in the NFL. No way. But that's the thing. So I think if Trey Lance wants to be successful in the NFL, he has to get better at setting himself up. And just in his accuracy, like you said, though, I do think that some of that stuff could be fixed if he does set his feet and stuff like that, but we have to see that, and that's why I do feel a little gypped with Trey Lance because I don't think we got to see him at his full potential because how are we supposed to know? It's not like he played a ton of games in 2020. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he played one game and it was mediocre,
and so that's what does kind of suck.
Yeah, right. So I think when it comes to these three quarterbacks, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Kyle Trask, I think Trey Lance is going to get drafted the highest of them purely because of the upside. NFL GMs love upside, and we know this. I think Trey Lance could go as high as I think the Panthers have the number 8 pick. I don't think it's a stretch to say Trey Lance goes at number 8 overall.
Do you think that he'll get drafted over Zach Wilson or Justin Fields?
Some people do. I don't think that. I think that Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson are a clear top 3. Maybe you can move Zach Wilson and Justin Fields. Maybe you can switch them. But I think they're a clear top 3, and then you get Trey Lance, and then you get Mac Jones, and then for me, it's a big drop-off down to Kyle Trask.
That's so funny. Pro Football Focus has Kyle Trask at 5. Mac Jones at 6 and Trey Lance at 4.
Really?
And Zach Wilson at 3 and Justin Fields at 2 and surprise, surprise, Trevor Lawrence at 1.
Oh, okay. So that is almost exactly how I have it. Just switch Mac Jones and Kyle Trask.
But they have Zach Wilson switched. I mean, with your way actually.
Oh yeah.
So
you're right.
So they have Zach at 3. Sorry, I got them mixed up. But
it's close. Like I'm back and forth between Zach Wilson and Trey Lance. Like Zach Wilson is the safer pick, and he has almost as much upside, I feel.
Yeah, I do like Zach Wilson. I will say for me, I would probably say right now Trevor Lawrence. I guess Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields might be better than Zach Wilson.
You've changed. You've changed since last week.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been thinking about it, and I think there's a chance that Justin Fields is a little bit more NFL ready than Zach Wilson, and I think that last game he played, I don't think it's fair to judge him on that because he had like messed up ribs. So
yeah, And he lost a lot of his weapons, I think, too.
Yeah, so I will say maybe Justin Fields 2, and then Zach Wilson 3, and I would say Kyle Trask 4, and then Trey Lance 5, and Mac Jones 6. But I could change a Mac Jones. I couldn't see it though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. It's hard to judge his body of work because Alabama was Alabama.
That I don't like putting him at 6. You know what I mean? But
it does mean that this is a really good class.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like this class is better than last year's class. I would still take Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert above all 6 of these guys, but the fact that we have 6 guys that could go in the first round, I think Kyle Trask won't. But the fact that we have 6 that could,
yeah,
like that's a big deal.
So for me, okay, so my thing is this, right? Say the Bears don't draft someone in the first round, okay, then I think them getting Kyle Trask in the second would be good. That's basically kind of the way I look at it, because I would like the Bears. I just don't think that there's going to be anyone that's good enough in the first round at the quarterback position where they could start immediately, essentially, to be drafted in the first round. So I'd rather them get like a tackle or something instead, and then get someone in the second round. Because, I mean, I think there's a chance that Trey Lance goes down to the second round, and some think I think there's a chance.
No chance. I'm sorry, that there's no chance for me.
Okay, so who drafts who then?
Teams are buzzing so much about all 6 of these guys. I think it's more likely that all 6 of them go in the first round than more than 2 of them drop to the second round.
You think that all 6 of them are going to go in the first round?
I am reasonably confident that at least 5 of them will.
What teams do you think are going to draft a quarterback in the first round?
So, obviously, Trevor Lawrence, number 1 to the Jags. The Jets probably going to take quarterback at number 2. It's not for certain, but there's a lot of talk about them loving Zach Wilson right now. At number 4, the Atlanta Falcons. They could draft a quarterback to sit behind Matt Ryan for a year.
I can see that.
I think Justin Fields or Trey Lance would be a good pick for them. I've seen some talk about the Lions at number 7, I think, taking one. I don't think that's very likely because
that's gonna happen. They just traded
Jared Goff. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it's at least in the discussion.
Okay.
You got the Panthers at number 8. Teddy Bridgewater's not their future. Got the Broncos at 9. Drew Lock is not their future. And that's 5 teams in the top 9 right there that I think could take a quarterback. You got the Washington football team at 19. You got the Bears at 20. You got the Steelers at 24. There are so many teams with a quarterback situation that's up in the air right now. So many.
So I'm just trying to think about this too. Okay, so what if though? Hear me out. What if one of these teams, I know it doesn't really happen in the NFL, but what if they don't like one of these quarterbacks and they just decide not to?
It's possible. I mean, quarterbacks are always drafted above their talent level unless they're like top 3 picks, because quarterback is the most important position on the field.
Because I just think about I don't know. Imagine being a team and you spend a first round pick on a quarterback you don't even believe in.
Yeah, that's true. But imagine being a team having a chance to draft a franchise quarterback, even if it's Kirk Cousins level, and you pass on him with the 12th overall pick. I think 49ers are there in contention for a quarterback as well. Imagine you pass on a Kirk Cousins level quarterback at number 12. That feels pretty bad too.
Yeah, that would.
So I feel like teams want to take that chance.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bears did it.
Okay, but the Bears did it. What you saying, Mitchell Trubisky?
The Bears did it. Yeah.
Yeah, but they didn't think he was gonna be Kirk Cousins. They thought he was gonna be Deshaun Watson.
That's true. But they I think it would feel worse if we passed on Mitchell Trubisky and maybe he turned out to have a good career. I think that would feel worse than we feel right now as Bears fans.
Yeah.
I mean, look at it. Like, it feels terrible to have passed on Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, it feels terrible to pass on a quarterback when you know you need one.
This is so interesting because I just can't imagine that many quarterbacks being drafted, and I really don't feel like they're actually deserving of being drafted in the first round, you know? But you're right. I
Situation
mean,
calls for
maybe
it.
yeah, I just don't like that at all, you know? I really just think that that's nuts. I mean, cuz personally, I'd rather build a team uh I guess build the team so that way when you do find a quarterback that you like, you can draft them and then they'll be safe, you know, like have a good line first and stuff like that. But I guess maybe if those teams already have that stuff, then that's okay. Because my thing is that, okay, so say you don't have the guy, but you have all the pieces, so you're probably not actually going to be winning a lot of games, and so you'll probably be able to actually draft whenever you do like that quarterback. I know teams don't think like this, but in my head, I feel like that would be that could work. And also too, when you do get the quarterback, even if it isn't the best option available, if you're able to protect the quarterback, then that makes life so much easier for the quarterback coming in.
Even if that quarterback is Mac Jones, right?
Well, yeah, if that quarterback is Mac Jones, you know, then if you have a good line, and then that would definitely help him because that's what he's used to.
Yeah, and I think like this might sound like me being a homer, but I don't think it is. I think that's exactly what the Bears are doing. Like the Bears are as close as you can be to a quarterback away. Obviously, we have some offensive line issues and wide receivers a little weak, but
Yeah, if we get a tackle though, then
Yeah.
a good one, then it would be fine.
the past 3 years we've gone 8-8, 8-8 again, and then 12-4 in 2018, and that's riding Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles as our quarterbacks, and they suck. So if we can get like an average quarterback, would not that 8-8 team from last year be 10-6, 11-5? Because I think Mac Jones is better than Mitchell Trubisky right now.
It's hard for me to say because I mean, I would say that upside wise, yes.
Right? Yeah.
But yeah, upside wise, yes. But I don't know if he's actually better than Mitchell Trubisky right now.
But
You
but
know what I
I
mean?
think you have to take the chance because we know what Trubisky is and what he's not.
Yes, I agree 100%. That's not the point I was making. That's why I said upside wise, yes.
Yeah.
You know, you definitely would take Mac Jones over Mitchell Trubisky right now because we already know. We're already done with that. We already know. So we know what Nick Foles is, especially. I just hope this Wilson trade goes through for the Bears.
Me too, man.
If that happens, I'll be such a happy camper. And imagine if they're able to get rid of Nick Foles. That's not going to happen. But
imagine.
I think if we do make that trade, Khalil Mack is going to have to go.
Probably. I'd say you're right about that because like the Bears aren't super rich in assets right now. Not a ton of picks, not a ton of
And money.
high-level assets. But
Money-wise, you have to get rid of him too, I
yeah,
think.
when you're a quarterback away, you got to throw everything on the table for Russell Wilson, right?
And the defense wouldn't be that bad without Khalil Mack.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
The defense is pretty deep.
Yeah. So I think it would actually be fine, but obviously there would be a difference. But I just I think that having Russell Wilson is way better than having Khalil Mack.
I agree. Yeah.
And one thing I will say is that Khalil Mack played injured this season, the whole season. That's what Ryan Pace said, and he definitely was not as effective. And we still had a really good defense.
Yeah, very much.
So realistically, that means if we get a decent end to replace him, which it might be difficult, but hey, who knows? What if we do draft a quarterback? And I mean, this is the Russell Wilson thing. So if we don't have to worry about drafting the quarterbacks, then maybe we could get an end in the second round. Maybe they end up being good, you know, and who knows what happens then. Because I know we're definitely not going to have a first round pick if we get Russell Wilson.
Yeah. This is an interesting quarterback situation for the Bears and for the entire NFL. It's a good thing this rookie class is so strong.
Yeah, it is good. What I want to say too before we get into it, before we get into the Bulls versus the Pelicans, what do you think it would take for the Bears to get Russell Wilson?
Oh man, that's because we're so thin on assets, right? So, like you said, Khalil Mack has to go. Our first round pick this year has to go. Um, like, like looking at past trades, like there really is no trade as big as Russell Wilson in recent years, is there? Like, what did Carson Wentz go for? Carson Wentz went for
A third round.
A third round this year and a second round next year that could become a first round, and that's for Carson
Yeah.
Wentz, who's good but not great. So let's at a baseline, it has to be Khalil Mack and 2 firsts.
Dude, I think it has to be 3 firsts.
I wouldn't even be mad at that.
I think there might not be a lot of teams that actually offer the 3 firsts too. I think that the Bears might, because this is the thing. If they know, okay, so I want to put this in this perspective. The GM knows that this is Ryan Pace's last chance.
Right.
With that in mind, that means that Ryan Pace is desperate. So, if you know for sure that he has to give you at least 2 first-round picks, then you definitely have to get that third one.
or meet in the middle. But you're right. You would have to, like, you obviously want to start negotiations high. Because whoever the next Bears quarterback is fighting to save Ryan Pace's job and maybe Matt Nagy's job.
Yeah, I think both. I think they're kind of tied at this point. At least that's what I feel like Bears ownership made it seem like when they talked about the two. You know, they're like, oh, you don't just give up on people. I don't know their exact words, but that's basically their sentiment. But what I will say is that I really do feel like GMs around the league know the situation that's going on with the Bears right now, and they know that Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy have to get it done very soon. And with that being said, because Ryan Pace might only have 2 more seasons. I think at max he has 2 more seasons. And so that means he has to get
any sort of success.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. So that's why I think a good team to trade with right now, if you're the Seattle Seahawks, is the Chicago Bears. Because you know that they're going to be the most desperate team.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, because the other teams, I feel like they're not as concerned about losing their job. You know what I mean? But this one is they know for a fact they are on notice. You have 2 seasons, maybe just 1. So you got to get this done now.
Quite the situation.
Yeah. But anyway, so we're going to get into Bulls Pelicans. What did you think of the game?
I got to reset my brain after all that football.
I know, right? What I will say is that I loved how aggressive Kobe White was in that game.
I think that's exactly what we've been talking about, what we want to see from him. He's a very streaky player, and it's good to see him have a good game and get there more consistently. I think he took a lot of good shots. He had good shot selection in this game.
Yeah, and he was actually making 3-pointers because we've talked about it before. Kobe White has to be a consistent 3-point shooter to be successful in this league, and because obviously he's playing as a starter right now, and he would like to keep it that way, I would assume. But in order for him to do that on this team, he really has to be a top scorer, and in order to do that, I think he has to shoot the 3 really well. And in that game, he shot it. He shot it pretty well. And, he had a lot of points. He scored 25 points. It's just a little odd because he is a point guard. I know it's kind of like positionless basketball now, but for a point guard to only have 3 assists, it's kind of weird, you know.
Yeah, those numbers are confusing me a little bit, but if Zach LaVine is taking care of it, Thaddeus Young's taking care of it, Thomas Satoransky, it's like you do want to see more, but if the team's getting assists, I guess it doesn't matter who they're coming from.
What I will say is that too, what is good, not on the offensive side of the ball, for Kobe White is that he has been more attentive, like in the defensive side of the ball. But going back to offense, because I always think about it too, because they always say, well, if you put energy in this one thing, then usually you're not putting energy in something else, which is weird. But that's kind of the thing they say when, LeBron scores all these points, so of course he's going to slack off in defense a little because he has to focus on offense. And I don't like that idea, but I do think it holds some truth. And but I do think it's weird as a point guard that you're not passing the ball like to people when they're in position to score. I feel like that should be one of your top things that you're really good at.
It's definitely not. It's not one of his top strengths, at least at this point in time. He's still very young, but
Yeah.
I would like to see more of that going forward.
But one thing I will say is that I think a lot of his assists too come off of when he's driving and then he kicks it out.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't do that every time. You know what I mean? Like there has to be better ways of doing this. And I feel like Zach LaVine, surprisingly, I don't think when he came here he was a passer. I mean, he was definitely, I feel like, more of just a scorer. But he has grown to be such an all-around offensive player. It's actually really fun to watch because Zach cannot only pull up from anywhere and drive at all times, it seems like, but you know what? He could decide, it looks like he's going to go up for a shot, and then he decides to pass the ball, and the player is wide open. I almost said a receiver is wide open. And the player's wide open, and they take a shot, and they score. And I think it's also due to how good he is, where the defense has to really account for him. But at the end of the day, he's still making those passes, so you can't take it away from him.
Yeah, I mean, Zach LaVine is a threat at every level of the game on offense at this point. I took a look at his shot chart for this game against the Pelicans, and it was, I think, one mid-range jumper, maybe two, and the rest of his 19 shots were either at the rim or behind the three-point line. So he is credible to score from anywhere, and if he's credible to pass to anywhere, that's a huge offensive threat.
Yeah, and also from memory, I think there were two. I think you were right with that one. Two mid-range shots. So, but yeah, I mean, that's what I really like to see. And it's hard because Zach LaVine's still not going to get any credit because the Bulls aren't, they're just starting to get good, so people aren't going to be praising him that much. But he has to be one of the best offensive scorers in the game right now.
Oh, he is. He's been like top 10, maybe top 7-ish in scoring for pretty much the entire season.
But I just feel like he doesn't get that respect still. You know what I mean? And that's what sucks is that, yes, but it's because you're not on the best team in the league, so no one's really going to care. It's kind of what I think is almost happening with Zion right now. Like the broadcasters talk about how great Zion's doing,
But you never really hear about it.
But you don't hear about it. Zion is doing really great right now. But also, I think it's a little overlooked because of how he plays. He doesn't play like how the rest of the top scorers play in the league.
He is just like a pure rim scorer right now.
Yeah, I put in my notes. He plays 90s 2000s basketball.
I saw when I was looking at the shot charts. I decided to take a look at the shot charts for all like the top scorers in this game, and Zion Williamson's shot chart was all within 2 feet of the rim. Not a single jump shot outside of the paint. Just all at the rim. And how many shot attempts did he have in this game? He had 17 shot attempts in this game, all at the rim, every single one.
See, I don't necessarily have a problem with that generally, but in terms of
points are points, yeah.
Yeah, but in terms of the team composition thing, if Lonzo Ball was just a more effective shooter, then they would not be a problem. Because then you would have more people that could shoot from the outside and kind of make up for, Zion not kind of opening up the court a little bit more. You know what I mean? But points are points, and if it's effective, I think you should do it. I just think it sucks that he doesn't have more reliable scorers around him at this point.
Yeah, I go on.
No, I think Brandon Ingram is a pretty reliable scorer, but outside of that, I don't really know.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's pretty much just those two in terms of offense on the Pelicans, and they're both very good scorers. But everyone else is so streaky. You got Eric Bledsoe. He's always been inconsistent, like you said. Lonzo inconsistent. JJ Redick inconsistent. So it's tough. I feel like the Pelicans are actually in a similar situation to the Bulls, where they're this great young team with a lot of potential, and a reputation for bad defense, sloppy play at the end of games, and their stars not getting enough credit.
Dude, it is true. But imagine if the Bulls had Zion, though.
Oh my goodness,
We'd be a good
that'd be
team.
incredible.
Yeah, we'd be a good team right now.
Yeah, we're 16 and 18 right now, and we've talked in depth about how many like close losses the Bulls have had. If we had Zion, like we'd probably be no joke the fourth seed at worst.
Yeah, worse. I think we'd be one of the top teams just because Zion is so dominant down low, and I think we do have a little bit of a problem with that still. And I think, well, like I just stated, I wish Zion Williamson had more consistent scores. Brandon Ingram is a good scorer, but Zach LaVine is way better. So I think that'd be a way better situation for Zion.
I think so too. Zion, if you're listening, come to Chicago.
Yeah, but I wish he would come to Chicago. Where do you think Blake Griffin's going to go? I know this is off topic, but I just wanted to ask you.
But no, yeah, that's a good point. Because it's a similar question. There's a big man who we need in Chicago. I don't think Blake Griffin's going to come to Chicago because he wants to win a ring this year, and the Bulls aren't winning a ring this year.
Yep.
The big talk right now is surprise, surprise, the Lakers, and surprise, surprise, the Nets. Because I think those teams both give him a good shot to win a ring. If I had to place a bet on it right now, I would say he goes to the Nets over the Lakers, just because the Lakers have a lot of big depth when they're healthy, and the Nets don't. So Blake would probably get more playing time on the Nets.
I think that is good thinking, and I agree. But just to talk about this, what if he goes to the Lakers because he trusts LeBron to win a championship more?
Ugh. I'm sick of this.
Because I think that's why Montrez went to the Lakers, right?
It's the same question, yeah. Of course that's why.
So I just think to myself, what if Blake Griffin does that? I think it'd be cooler in my eyes, in my mind, if he went to the Nets. But I could easily see him going to the Lakers. I want him to go to the Nets if that's the decision, because I think it would make things more interesting too if they are the teams that go to the finals.
Yeah,
I think
agree.
That would actually matchup wise make things a little bit more interesting. And I would actually like to see Blake Griffin actually play in a finals, because I feel bad for Blake Griffin a little bit, and I know I probably shouldn't feel bad for people who have made hundreds of millions of dollars.
But in context, right?
But in context, that was obviously a joke, but but I just feel bad because he's gotten injured so many times, and I feel like his athleticism.
He hasn't gotten a super fair shake in terms of how he got traded from the Clippers, and it just left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, I think, who is a Blake Griffin fan, because he's a likable player. Like, everybody wants to see a guy that entertains you that much succeed.
And I kind of one thing that does suck is, yes, he's so entertaining, but I also think to myself, when that first season he played with the Pistons, he seemed like he was a lot more skilled player. He had more moves down low, and I think he was actually starting to become more of a complete player. But I think his body is just kind of breaking down at this point, and that's, to me, kind of sad.
Yeah,
because I think it's an accumulation of injuries at this point.
Recently, Blake Griffin has been a three-point shooter and not much more.
I definitely agree with that, but it just sucks for me because I really think that Blake Griffin, if he wasn't injured, he would be so much more. If he didn't get injured all the time, he'd be so much more. But injuries pile up, especially when you're a big man and you get injuries. It's different when you're a guard and you get injuries, I feel. It's just big men, they take a bigger toll on their body, like just playing the game. Like look at how Shaq walks around, and then look at how guards his age from the NBA walk around. It's completely different. You know what I mean? It's because you're running up and down the court, and it's just for some reason harder. I would assume it's more stress on your bones and on your ligaments and stuff like that.
Oh, for sure it is. Yeah.
But But it just that's a big deal when you're also doing that's also happening and you're getting injured. And also Blake Griffin's one of those players that it's not like he was a big man and he wasn't explosive. No, he was super explosive. So that's even more stress on his bones, on his ligaments. So yeah, I would like to go see him go to the Nets, I guess, if that's an option. If he did come to Chicago, I don't know, like a one-season thing, I'd be cool with that.
I don't know how much he would be contributing because I think this is a develop the young players year, but it would be fun.
Well, maybe he would a little because I could see him play center because we don't really have a ton of depth there. But you're right. I think generally for us going forward, it would be better for Wendell to get as much minutes as possible.
Right.
If we're going to keep him. But I want to see more of that from Wendell. Him actually going at people. He didn't really do that this game.
Yeah,
he upset about it.
He had a lot of soft shots at the rim. He didn't scream, "My name's Wendell Carter."
Dude, he didn't, and that's it was infuriating. I saw this one layup he did, and he missed, I think, and then he went for it again, and I think he missed again, and I just thought to myself, and then he got the rebound, and I think he passed it out, and it hurt me a little inside. Because I'm thinking, dude, just dunk the ball.
Yeah, he was
stand your ground and dunk.
He was 3 of 11 from the floor, and most of those 11 shots came at the rim. Only made 3 of them.
It's sad. It's sad, Wendell. He hurt you. Hurt my feelings sometimes. Not all the time. I will say I'm thankful for your rebounding. I will say that.
It's very
because
strong
without
rebounding.
without you, we'd have substantially less. But you need to score more often. It is what it is at this point.
Yeah, I completely agree.
But yeah, I mean that's basically all I have to say. I will also say I liked Lonzo's his passing skills. I like how he does these little flashy passes. They're fun to watch. He definitely has very good court vision.
Yeah, I'm still very much a Lonzo fan.
Yeah, he's a good player. He's just not what we thought he was. Well, I'm not saying you thought he was going to be that way, but what we were told he was supposed to be.
Yeah, he's not a superstar, but he's still very valuable to NBA teams.
Yeah, he's not what his brother's going to be, but
it's not what his brother could be. Let's maybe take it back a little bit there.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess could be, but I think he has a higher chance of becoming that than his brother and his older brother does, who's been in the league for what, like 4 years now? Is that what it is?
You're probably right.
Because he's averaging around 20 points a game in this last month or last week or something. I read today, and that's kind of a lot for a rookie.
It is, yeah.
And especially because when you look at LaMelo, he's not, like we've talked about, he's not even fully developed as an adult yet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very impressive. My last thing I want to say is that I really like how Brandon Ingram utilizes his height and his wingspan. I think it's pretty dope. I don't know. I like when he just pulls up for a jumper and he puts his arms real high and like no one can block it, it seems. So it was interesting to watch. I like that. So that's basically it for me on this game.
And moving on to Suns versus Lakers. There's another player who has a very large wingspan, played pretty well in this game. His name's Talen Horton-Tucker on the Lakers.
I thought you were going to say LeBron James.
His wingspan is... well, him too. But no, Talen Horton-Tucker's wingspan is huge. Like it's almost disconcerting to me a little bit. Like it just looks a little bit unnatural.
How big is his wingspan?
Let me look it up. But while I'm doing, tell me what you thought of this Suns Lakers game.
I mean, it was interesting. It was an interesting game. I liked how Chris Paul was playing. I don't think he scored a single point in the first half, but he still contributed so much, and I think he's that old school traditional point guard, and he shows you. I think that it could still work in the league. I think that it would be better if you had a bunch of players that were really, really good at passing the ball, because obviously more ball movement is going to probably give you more opportunity to score.
Right.
But I think a player like Chris Paul, if you have players that can shoot, it's perfect for him. And I think the Suns do have players that can score. I think for a player like Mikal Bridges, who's generally in college a 3-point scorer, I think for someone that like a spot up shooter type of player, for someone like Chris Paul, that's perfect, and for someone like Mikal, that's perfect for him. I think having Devin Booker on the team, and he can do his own thing, but it also seems like he seems almost like a more willing passer this season. I think that's really important, and basically there's a lot of players that can score on this team, and if they're set up properly, and I think Chris Paul could definitely do that, but I also think they're actually passing the ball a little bit better than they were last season.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Paul has done absolute wonders for that team. Just quick interjection: Talen Horton-Tucker's wingspan is 7 foot 1 inch, though he's only 6'4", so that's a huge disparity there.
Oh wow!
Yeah, right.
That's
like it
pretty big.
It legitimately looks unnatural to me, but it helps him on the court, so that's good. But in regards to Chris Paul, he said recently that he came to Phoenix specifically for Devin Booker, because he wanted to play with another shooting guard that he could facilitate and help him develop into the kind of player that he thinks he can be. And I think he's doing great in that regard, because the assist numbers that Chris Paul is putting up right now, he's 5th in the league in assists per game. And for him to still be doing that after changing teams so often recently, and just after having been in the league this long, it still blows my mind. Like I said this to you 2 years ago. Like, how is Chris Paul still doing this? And here he is 2 years later, still doing this.
It's crazy that he's even still a starter, being like his height. You know what I mean, in the league at this point, because he's 6'1", and some people say he's really 5'11". And he's still playing phenomenally. I mean, I feel like 2 years ago that he was going to be on a really big decline around this time.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. It isn't. Who knows? Maybe he gets injured again. You know, that would be sad. Obviously, don't hope for that. But it's really nice that he can still do this. And he's one of the last of the players I started watching growing up that's still playing at a very high level. So I'm a fan of what he's doing in the league right now.
Yeah, I love when a team has that one veteran player who can lead the young guys, because we saw these Suns play very well at the end of last season. They were so good in the bubble before the playoffs, but they just weren't able to make it because they started off so poorly. But Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, they're all very, very strong young players. And I personally did not see the Suns being the second seed in the West at this point in time, but here we are. And it's not just because of Chris Paul. Like, I think the entire team is built very well.
Yes, that's something me and you talked about 2 years ago, you know? Or was it 3 years ago when they got Mikal Bridges?
That was the Wendell Carter Jr. draft, because I remember that year, yeah. It was 3 years ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago. Remember we were talking about this because I got attacked on Reddit for liking Mikal Bridges. And I remember I told you... You know, remember when that happened? I said, I think he'll be really good for the Suns. In a few years, I think he's going to be a good piece. And now, I think he is a good piece. And I think that overall, you think about it, I'm not saying he's going to be a great player. I just think he could play his role.
He can be,
you know, and
he's a scoring version of Lonzo Ball. He's not a star, but you want him on your team.
That's a good comp. I like that, actually. We should start doing that. I think we should start doing that, where we can make that a thing, where if someone's really good at one thing, but they're also like generally kind of okay at other stuff, we call them like, yeah, he's like Lonzo Ball, but his thing, instead of passing.
Because you want guys that are elite at one thing. Maybe Mikal isn't an elite scorer, but he's a good 3-point shooter, good enough to want on your team.
Oh, yeah. He's shooting 42% from the three so far this season. That's pretty good.
That's very strong, actually.
Yeah, and he's... See, I'm going to be honest. Maybe it isn't... it won't stay this way, But that's kind of where I pictured in my head when he was drafted 3 years ago what he would be doing in the league. I thought that he would be a really good spot up shooter, and he is a good defender. I will say it's hard when he's guarding LeBron because he's LeBron, and LeBron is so much more powerful than he is. But he is generally a good defender, so he will do whatever he can. But I think I think he's a good piece on a team, and like you said, when you can specialize in one thing, and if you're a good 3-point shooter and a good defender, I think you have a spot anywhere in the league.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct. You know what? You know what team I think would love Mikal Bridges right now? The LA Lakers, because they're missing
Yeah.
some of that 3-point shooting. I think right now.
It was crazy how well they shot the three in the finals. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, when a team can turn it on, that's great. But I still feel like they're missing some of that consistency this year.
Oh, I agree. I agree 100%. One thing I want to say from the Lakers standpoint is I did notice LeBron right now has to do so much for them.
Yeah, with Anthony Davis out, he's playing absurd amount of minutes. I checked; he is 7th in the league in total minutes played this year. He shouldn't have to be doing that.
Yeah, I know. Do you think he's going to win MVP?
No, because hot take. If you look at all the advanced stats, it's Nikola Jokic by a mile right now, like by an incredible amount. Like it blew my mind the gap he has on most guys in advanced stats right now. But even if it's not Nikola Jokic, I think there are enough guys that are playing at an elite level right now where we can't sort of go, hey, LeBron, it's your turn again, which I feel like a lot of people wanted to do this year.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people did want to do. I just wanted to ask because so many people, when I watch all these shows, say that LeBron's going to be MVP. So just wanted to know your opinion on the matter, just because I feel like you have a pretty informed one in terms of the numbers, which I think is generally what's most important, it seems, right now for MVP voting.
Yeah, I think...
Because...
Oh, go on.
No, because that's why I think James Harden won that 1 year over LeBron. It was like 2 years ago. Because he had so many more win shares than LeBron. And, so at the end of the day, it's just, I think that the numbers aspect, advanced analytics stuff is what they look into now.
And LeBron was playing at an MVP level for a brief period this year, but he's not keeping it up at that high level. Like, he's still LeBron James. He's still probably the best player in the league, but that doesn't necessarily make him the MVP.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I don't know who I picked to be MVP, but it's tough. I mean, it's tough because I also do, and I know it doesn't really matter, but I do sometimes think it is kind of weird how LeBron hasn't been MVP at least 10 times. but I get it. It's not all about who's the best player, but it is so easy to go there and say, yeah, he should be MVP every year. Every year because he's the best, clearly. But Nikola Jokic, that's crazy. That's insane. What's it like? Do you have any examples of something?
I was looking at it earlier today, and in win shares, in value over replacement player, in box plus minus, he is so far ahead in ways that don't even make sense to me. Because
wow.
So I'm give me like 10 seconds to pull this up because
no problem.
I got it.
Okay.
So in win shares per 48 minutes right now, the second place, or actually let's go top three. In third place, you got Kawhi Leonard with .234 win shares per 48. In second place, you got Joel Embiid with .283. That's a huge jump right there, actually. So I think Embiid is probably the number 2 front runner right now. And Nikola Jokic right now is .31 per 48. So he has about 35% more than Kawhi Leonard, than Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jimmy Butler, James Harden. He is playing 35% better than those guys.
When you think about it, though, it kind of does make sense because he is a really complete player. you know, and the types of shots he shoots are super efficient. You know what I mean? So he shoots super efficient shots. He's really good at passing. So when at the end of the day, I mean, when you put those things together, it does make sense, but it's just not something you would think, I guess.
Yeah, right. Like what can't Nikola Jokic do? He's maybe not the best defender.
Run fast.
Run fast.
Run fast. Yeah. That's it. I'm sorry. That was the first thing that came into my head.
But like he's not fast. He's not an elite defender, but he's still a passable defender, and he's such a far and away elite scorer and just a general offensive player. It's crazy. I think it's, even despite the numbers, it might be a little bold to place him MVP because there is a lot of media narrative that drives that, and he's not.
Joel Embiid.
Like Embiid is probably a favorite over Jokic despite the numbers, but that's not to say Embiid's not deserving, because he definitely is.
See, but maybe that definitely has something to do with it, because I think media people are the ones that vote for MVP. But I will say, the 1 year that Harden won over LeBron 2 years ago, I think that a lot of the coverage was kind of saying that LeBron deserves this award, this and that, all this stuff, and Harden still ended up winning because his numbers were just so much better. So who knows? We'll find out at the end of the season. Who knows if it even will be this big disparity towards the end of the season? We won't know. Yeah. But it is pretty interesting, actually, because that is a pretty big difference in terms of 1 to 3.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I also wanted to say about going back to the Suns and the Lakers, because I know we kind of strayed off a little bit, is it's not really that big of a deal, but Dario Saric looked kind of nice.
Oh, I thought so too.
The limited minutes he played.
I think he led the team in scoring with 21 points. But I like Dario Saric. He was sort of like a hidden gem of mine a couple years ago when he was on the 76ers. It was when I was playing, the DraftKings daily fantasy type stuff, and I found myself picking Dario Saric almost every day because he was just so consistent at giving you points and rebounds, and he's doing that for the Suns too. So I'm happy to see him get back to form here.
And I do like that he does have a little bit of touch with his passes. He made this really nice bounce pass, I think, from like the 3-point line into the paint, and it looks so smooth. I just thought to myself, "Oh wow, that was really nice."
That European big man passing.
I know, I love it. I loved watching it, and I thought, you know what, you're pretty nice. I didn't really know that you were this nice, but I like you. So
yeah, the Suns are definitely a threat, and I don't feel like, much like we talked about the Jazz last week, they're maybe not getting enough credit.
Yeah, they're not. I will say it is hard though, because when Anthony Davis is healthy, I don't know how well DeAndre Ayton matches up against him.
That's true. That's very true.
But they are a threat regardless of that, because at the end of the day, I mean, it might not happen, but the Lakers could lose early in the playoffs, and then you don't even have to think about that. So I know it's not something we think about, because that generally doesn't happen to LeBron almost ever. Ever really.
Yeah, like has he ever gone out early?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while. We'll have to say, and what is really early, like Eastern Conference Finals, you know what I mean? That's early? No, that's a step before the finals. So, yeah. But at the end of the day, though, you can't completely take that out of the equation.
Right.
And especially this season, because it seems, I thought they were going to be a way better team this season, but it seems like they do have some chemistry issues. I think not having Rondo there, I think definitely affected them a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know if it's chemistry issues for me. I honestly think they're just coasting a little bit. Like maybe they're not trying as hard as they have to, because they know they're going to make the playoffs. Like they know if they were ever in danger of actually not making the playoffs, then LeBron and AD would just go God mode. Like they're not trying at the level that they have to.
I just think I could definitely see that. I didn't even consider that to be an option, to be completely honest with you. But the only reason why I didn't consider that to be an option is just because LeBron looks like he's playing so hard still. And so it's so weird to me that if you're playing on the same team as LeBron James and he's not coasting, that you would start coasting, that you would think that would be okay.
I guess you're right. LeBron does have a reputation for sort of motivating his teammates when they're not playing so well or trying so hard.
But even like after that too, if LeBron has to try hard for you guys to win and you're not trying hard as hard as you can, then that seems a little wrong. You realize he's the whole reason why you're a contender. Like, help him out.
I guess you're right, yeah.
Because he shouldn't be playing 40 minutes a game to begin with. You know? He should be playing around like 36. So some games this season, I mean, let me look up his average, but I know at one point in the season, I think it was 42 minutes or something like that.
Probably not an average, but he's had a lot of games over 40 minutes.
And that's not right. So, because it just isn't. I mean, I will say in old NBA, that happened all the time, but not in this NBA. Right. That needs to change immediately. Okay, so now you're right. So he is averaging 34 minutes a game, but I think there was a week where he averaged 42. Maybe that was what I was thinking of.
Yeah, because they went to overtime like 3 games straight, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense
so
then.
That had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, though, LeBron, he needs more rest. And I think his teammates are good enough to give him that. So if they are coasting, then that would be kind of, I don't know if I wouldn't feel comfortable coasting around LeBron James if he's playing his very hardest and I'm not.
Yeah.
I'll be worried about getting traded.
It's happened before.
Yeah, so I mean, but I'm gonna be honest though, you very well might be correct. I think that's actually not a bad take, because why try your best? I guess if you know you're gonna make the playoffs no matter what. I mean the Clippers did that.
We've definitely seen it happen before.
Yeah, the Clippers did it last season. So I definitely think that's possible. But yeah, so. That's mainly all I really wanted to say about the game. I thought it was a good performance by the Suns. I think it is kind of hard to rate how good they actually are in terms of it all, just because obviously Lakers are down Anthony Davis, but a win is a win. So hey, you take it.
And a number 2 seed, is a number 2 seed.
Yep, true. But do you want to wrap it up, or you got anything else you want to talk about?
I think we hit everything on the plan.
Okay, cool. I have one more question to ask you. So I actually don't think I want to talk about quarterback prospects going forward, because I think we've talked about enough of them that are actually going to matter.
I think you're right about that.
So,
yeah. Like even having 6 prospects to go this in depth into is pretty good for this rookie class.
I think so. Is there any other position that you would like to go through, or maybe a free agent like a position for free agency that you'd want, maybe in terms of the Bears, to look at?
I was planning to suggest to you actually that with free agency coming up for the NFL very soon, I was thinking maybe we could do sort of a free agency retrospective once sort of the first week or so has passed, get some of the big names, talk about where they go, that kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, I'm cool with that. I think that would be good. But for the next show, I think we're going to talk about the Israel Adesanya fight that's coming up, just to let you guys know. And after that, we'll probably talk about some more NBA games. And I don't know, we'll try to fit some football in. Hopefully the Bears get Russell Wilson. And we'll definitely talk about that. But if that doesn't happen, we'll find something else. But thank you all for listening. And I'm Brandon Ruiz, and I'm here with
Jack Coward.
So see you next time.